Thank Senator Peters, who I really look forward to being a good partner in trying to go through that process and actually starting to solve this problem. We're not going to solve all the problems of the world, but I think this is one we can get our arms around. I do have a chart that is certainly describing the magnitude of the problem. I've been building this over the last couple of years. It shows a number of things, but it shows unaccompanied children from Central America, as well as people coming to this country illegally and being apprehended at the border as family units. Two particular groups where we have laws on the books that really are loopholes that are being exploited. And you can see the results. Prior to 2012, we only had about 4,000 unaccompanied children from Central America come to this country illegally and are apprehended. 2012, the DACA memorandum doesn't apply to anybody in the future, but it was used by coyotes as an incentive. They say, go to America, you get a slip, the permiso slip, which is really the notice to appear. And again, reasonable people can disagree. I personally think that kind of sparked this, was a catalyst for what we see in the ensuing years. You can see 2013, 36,000 individuals in those two categories. 2014, the year that President Obama declared it a humanitarian crisis, and it was. And CBP was overwhelmed at that point in time. 120,000 unaccompanied children and individuals as family units came to this country illegally. And then the Obama administration obviously recognized that as a real problem, started detaining children with their families. And that was a consequence. And you can see in 2015, that consequence, I would argue, reduced the flow and cut it almost in half. But then the Obama administration was taken to court, and I think Secretary Jay Johnson completely disagreed with the ruling, but said that the Flores Agreement applied to not only unaccompanied children, but accompanied children as well. And so the Obama administration had to make a choice. I mean, are we going to enforce the law, which would require us to separate children from the families? They chose no, we're not going to do that. And that began what is commonly referred to as catch and release, which sparked even further. Candidate Trump obviously talked tough on the border. I think maybe that might be a little bit of why you see a downturn in 2017 when we first took office. But once the cartels, once the coyotes, once the individuals who want to come to this country realized that nothing had really changed in American laws, it could still be fully exploited, the problem has really exploded. And what is interesting about this chart is you have to realize this is all fiscal years, and this exponential growth in people coming in as unaccompanied children family units, the final year is not a full year. That approximately 240,000 individuals, now primarily people coming in as family units, primarily illegally. We've added a new category of people coming in by the borders. That's the light blue and the little green line up there. Very few are really presenting at the ports of entry because it's a lot easier. It's a more streamlined process to come in illegally. In just the first 6 months of this year, not quite 6 months, we're over 240,000. We've doubled the full year figure from 2014 when President Obama declared that legitimately a humanitarian crisis. We've doubled that in less than the first 6 months. So I think by anybody's definition, this is a real problem. I was interested to see Secretary Jay Johnson on Morning Joe last Friday describing when he came to work, if it was less than 1,000, it was an okay day, but if detentions or apprehensions are more than 1,000, it's going to be a really bad day. We've had days over 4,000 in the recent weeks. So this is a problem. We have to deal with it. As you can see in 2014, 2015 reduction, a consequence actually has an effect. Michael Chertoff recognized the exact same thing back in 2005. Back then, 2003, there were about 5,200 Brazilians getting into Mexico and coming into America illegally through the southwest border. 2004 was 8,800. In 2005, that more than tripled to 31,000. And Secretary Chertoff realized this is a problem. He had to do something about it. So, in response, DHS dedicated bed space. They detained, and they initiated a program of expedited removal of the Brazilians called Texas Hold'em. By doing that, the next year, only 1,400 people came. And to quote Secretary Chertoff, he said, quote, "The word spread surprisingly swiftly. Within its first 30 days, the operation had already begun to deter illegal border crossings by Brazilians. In fact, the number of Brazilians apprehended dropped by 50%. After 60 days, the rate of Brazilian illegal immigration through this sector was down 90% and is still significantly depressed all across the border. In short, we learned that a concentrated effort of removal can actually discourage illegal entries by non-Mexicans on the southwest border. So I think my point in this problem-solving process is an achievable goal is something that we've already achieved at some point in time. The goal ought to be short-term, immediately. How do we reduce that flow? The 240,000